There can only be one progressive queen, political pundits declared as Jasmine Crockett's meteoric rise began clashing with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's established dominance. The young Texas firebrand versus the seasoned New York icon. America was about to witness the ultimate progressive showdown. But what happened next would prove that experience, strategy, and political wisdom still matter more than viral moments in the battle for lasting influence. Tell us in the comment, are you watching from your office during lunch break, at home during evening political shows, or maybe on your phone while following political news? We want to know where our viewers are tuning in from around the country as we dive into this incredible battle between two progressive powerhouses. The rivalry began subtly, as most political power struggles do, with a single committee hearing that would reshape the landscape of progressive politics. Jasmine Crockett, the freshman congresswoman from Texas's 30th district, had been making waves since her arrival in Washington 6 months earlier. Her background as a civil rights attorney and her sharp legal mind had quickly established her as a formidable presence in committee hearing. But nothing had prepared the political world for what would happen on that Tuesday morning in March. The House Judiciary Committee was conducting oversight hearings on corporate accountability, with several major CEOs scheduled to testify about their company's labor practices and environmental policy. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had been preparing for weeks to question TechCorp's CEO Marcus Williams about his company's union-busting activities and tax avoidance strategy. This was exactly the kind of high-profile confrontation that had made AOC a household name and the undisputed leader of progressive politics. But Jasmine Crockett had been preparing too, and her approach would prove far more devastating than anyone anticipated. While AOC planned to use her trademark combination of moral outrage and social media savvy, Crockett had spent months building an airtight legal case that would leave Williams with no escape routes or deflection strategy. When committee chairman Jerry Nadler called the hearing to order, the packed room buzzed with anticipation. C-SPAN cameras were rolling. Political reporters had their laptops ready, and social media was primed for whatever fireworks AOC might provide. What no one expected was that the real show would come from the relatively unknown congresswoman from Dallas. AOC's questioning time came first, and she performed exactly as expected. Her 5-minute allocation was filled with pointed questions about worker exploitation, passionate speeches about corporate greed, and moments of moral clarity that had become her signature style. Williams responded with typical CEO evasiveness, corporate talking point, and deflections that AOC countered with increasingly frustrated interruption. The exchange was competent and politically effective, generating the kind of clips that would play well on progressive social media and cable news. AOC's performance was everything her supporters had come to expect: fierce, principled, and uncompromising in its defense of working families against corporate power. Then came Jasmine Crockett's turn, and the entire dynamic of the hearing shifted dramatically. Instead of moral outrage, Crockett approached Williams with the precision of a prosecutor building a criminal case. Her questions were surgical, her evidence was comprehensive, and her legal expertise transformed what had been political theater into something resembling an actual trial. Mr. Williams, Crockett began, consulting a thick folder of documents. I want to discuss document 47B from your company's internal communications, dated March 15th of last year. This email, sent from your head of human resources to regional managers, specifically instructs them to identify and eliminate union sympathizers through performance management strategy. How do you explain this directive? Williams stammered, clearly unprepared for the specificity of Crockett's evidence. Unlike AOC's questions, which allowed for corporate deflection, Crockett's inquiries demanded specific answers to specific allegations backed by specific documentation. The exchange continued for the full 5 minutes, with Crockett systematically dismantling Williams's credibility through a combination of legal expertise, thorough preparation, and devastating cross-examination skill. By the time her questioning concluded, Williams appeared defeated, his corporate talking points rendered useless against Crockett's prosecutorial approach. The immediate reaction was explosive. Within hours, clips of Crockett's questioning had generated millions of views across social media platforms, with political commentators praising her legal precision and effectiveness. News outlets that had barely covered her previous work began running feature stories about the rising star from Texas who had just delivered the most devastating corporate takedown in recent congressional history. More troubling for AOC was the direct comparison that immediately emerged wedged between her performance and Crockett. While AOC's questioning had been passionate and politically sound, it now seemed almost amateurish compared to Crockett's legal precision. Political Twitter began circulating side-by-side videos highlighting the contrast between moral outrage and prosecutorial effectiveness. The hashtag #TexasTornado began trending, with progressive activists praising Crockett's approach as the future of effective congressional oversight. Some particularly pointed tweets suggested that passion without legal expertise was insufficient for holding powerful interests accountable, an implicit criticism of AOC's style that stung precisely because it contained an element of truth. AOC's initial response was gracious, tweeting congratulations to Crockett for her powerful performance and welcoming her as a fierce advocate for working family. But privately, AOC was deeply concerned about the implications of being overshadowed by a freshman congresswoman, particularly on the issue of corporate accountability that had been central to her own political brand. The media narrative that emerged from the hearing was even more damaging to AOC's position. Major news outlets began running stories about the new face of progressive politics, with Crockett featured prominently as a more effective alternative to AOC's theatrical approach. Cable news bookers who had previously prioritized AOC for progressive perspectives began requesting Crockett for interviews about corporate accountability and legal reform. Most concerning for AOC was the response from progressive organizations and activists who had been her core supporters. Groups that had previously relied on AOC's media presence to amplify their messages began praising Crockett's results-oriented approach and suggesting that the progressive movement needed leaders who could deliver concrete victories rather than just viral moments. The shift in progressive media attention accelerated over the following weeks as Crockett continued to demonstrate her effectiveness in committee hearings and floor speeches. Her legal background allowed her to craft legislation that was both politically progressive and legally sound, addressing concerns that some of AOC's proposals were more symbolic than practical. When Crockett introduced the Corporate Accountability Enforcement Act, a comprehensive bill targeting the exact corporate behaviors she had exposed in her questioning of CEO Williams, progressive organizations immediately rallied behind the legislation. The bill's legal precision and enforceability impressed policy experts who had sometimes criticized AOC's proposals as politically powerful but practically limited. AOC recognized that she was facing the most serious challenge to her progressive leadership since entering Congress. Crockett's rise wasn't just about media attention or viral moments. It represented a fundamental question about what kind of leadership the progressive movement needed and valued most. The turning point came when AOC made a strategic decision that would ultimately secure her position as the preeminent progressive leader. Rather than competing directly with Crockett's legal expertise, AOC chose to leverage her greatest strength, political strategy, coalition building, and the kind of institutional knowledge that only comes from years of navigating congressional politics. AOC's counterattack began with a masterfully orchestrated legislative campaign that demonstrated why experience and political sophistication ultimately matter more than viral moments in achieving lasting change. She identified a weakness in Crockett's approach. While the Texas Congresswoman excelled at exposing corporate wrongdoing, she lacked the political networks and strategic understanding necessary to transform her investigations into actual policy victory. Working behind the scenes, AOC began building a comprehensive coalition around climate justice legislation that would require not just legal expertise, but political finesse, media strategy, and the kind of relationship building that takes years to develop. She reached out to environmental organizations, labor unions, progressive think tanks, and activist groups, leveraging relationships she had cultivated since her earliest days in Congress. The legislation AOC crafted was intentionally complex, requiring coordination between multiple committees, negotiations with moderate Democrats, and a sophisticated media campaign to build public support. It was exactly the kind of political challenge where her experience and strategic thinking would prove decisive against Crockett's legal skill. When AOC announced the Green New Deal Infrastructure Act, the progressive response was immediate and overwhelming. Unlike Crockett's corporate accountability bill, which addressed important but narrow issues, AOC's legislation tackled multiple progressive priorities simultaneously while demonstrating the kind of political vision that had originally made her a national figure. The rollout of AOC's bill was a masterclass in political strategy that highlighted the difference between viral moments and sustained political leadership. She coordinated simultaneous press conferences in 12 major cities, arranged endorsements from over 200 progressive organizations, and orchestrated a social media campaign that generated more engagement than any progressive initiative in years. Most importantly, AOC's bill included provisions that directly addressed issues Crockett had raised about corporate accountability, effectively incorporating the Texas Congresswoman's work into a broader progressive agenda. The move was politically brilliant, acknowledging Crockett's contributions while demonstrating AOC's superior ability to build comprehensive coalitions around complex issues. The media narrative began shifting back in AOC's favor as political observers recognized the sophistication of her legislative strategy and coalition-building effort. While Crockett's committee performances remained impressive, they began to seem like isolated moments rather than part of a coherent political vision for progressive change. The decisive moment came during a joint press conference where AOC and Crockett appeared together to promote the Green New Deal Infrastructure Act. AOC had strategically invited Crockett to co-sponsor the legislation, recognizing her contributions while positioning herself as the senior partner in their collaboration. During the press conference, a reporter asked about comparisons between their different styles and approaches to progressive politics. AOC's response was gracious but strategically perfect, praising Crockett's brilliant legal mind while subtly emphasizing her own role as a coalition builder who transforms individual expertise into collective action. The exchange highlighted exactly what had made AOC successful and what would keep her at the forefront of progressive politics: the ability to recognize and incorporate the strengths of others while maintaining her position as the movement's primary strategic leader and public face. Over the following months, AOC's legislation gained momentum in ways that Crockett's corporate accountability bill had not. The Green New Deal Infrastructure Act attracted bipartisan co-sponsors, generated sustained media attention, and created the kind of political pressure that actually moves policy forward in Congress. Crockett's role in the legislation was important and well recognized, but it became clear that her legal expertise was most effective when channeled through AOC's political strategy and coalition-building capability. The collaboration demonstrated the difference between individual brilliance and political leadership. The progressive movement's response to their partnership validated AOC's strategic approach. Rather than choosing between two competing leaders, progressive organizations embraced a model where AOC's political vision and strategic thinking provided the framework for incorporating diverse expertise from rising stars like Crockett. Political observers noted that AOC had successfully navigated the challenge to her leadership by embracing collaboration rather than competition, demonstrating the kind of political maturity that distinguished experienced leaders from talented newcomers. The long-term impact was clear. While Jasmine Crockett had established herself as a formidable legal mind and effective legislator, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had reaffirmed her position as the preeminent strategic leader of progressive politics. AOC's approach to the challenge had been masterful. Instead of trying to match Crockett's legal expertise, she had leveraged her superior political skills, institutional knowledge, and coalition-building abilities to create a framework where both could contribute effectively while maintaining her leadership position. The experience also enhanced AOC's reputation among her congressional colleagues, who recognized her ability to manage internal competition while advancing progressive priorities. Her handling of the situation demonstrated the kind of political sophistication that senior Democrats valued, and that would serve her well in future leadership roles. For Crockett, the collaboration provided valuable lessons about the difference between individual effectiveness and political leadership. While her legal skills remained impressive, she gained appreciation for the complex political strategies required to transform individual expertise into lasting policy change. The partnership between AOC and Crockett ultimately strengthened the progressive movement by demonstrating that effective leadership requires both legal expertise and political strategy, individual brilliance and coalition-building skills, viral moments, and sustained political vision. Most importantly, AOC's successful navigation of the challenge to her leadership reaffirmed her position as the progressive movement's premier political strategist and public face. While rising stars like Crockett would continue to contribute important expertise, AOC had proven that experience, political wisdom, and strategic thinking remain the most important qualifications for progressive leadership. The lesson was clear. In the complex world of congressional politics, talent alone is insufficient for lasting leadership. The progressive crown belonged to the person who could transform individual expertise into collective action, viral moments into sustained movements, and political passion into policy victories. That person remained Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Click subscribe to see more political battles where experience and strategy triumph over viral moments and individual talent. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in our next video. God bless you, and God bless America.